I wasn't planning on speaking today, but it was really striking that the noise started up the minute a woman speaker took the microphone after giving Drew some reprieves at different times anyway. I just wanted to point out that our lefty radicals, and I've always identified as a lefty radical, I just don't identify with these authoritarian refusers of free speech and democratic rights. But they think they're being brave. But as having accompanied Drew through that free speech campaign in the mall, they are doing exactly what their corporate overlords want them to do. That trick was used against us in the mall. We would go down there to speak, and the business community would just put up the microphone so that we couldn't hear and interact with other people. So it's really quite disappointing, but it's typical of bullies, which was, as Drew pointed out, they are bullies. And the most obvious point about the whole queer movement is that it is about bullying. It's perfected the art of bullying. They say trans women have a problem and that they are constantly assaulted and beaten up by men, so we have to be kind to them. So we all said, yes, fair enough, but nobody took on the men. Nobody said, let's stop that male violence. No, they said, we'll just make women move over. And then they said, oh, but you can't put trans women in a men's prison. They get beaten up and assaulted. So they didn't say, well, let's reform our prisons so that other men who aren't trans also don't get beaten up and raped. They said, no, put them into women's prisons, where, of course, there have been several assaults of women prisoners. So the female prisoners get done over yet again. So it's always the way that these people will not identify. It just drives me insane the way they will not see the oppression that they continue to perpetuate and the way they so aggressively assert men's voices. And it's been really striking. Long before I became aware of the problem that the growing trans movement was building, I have female friends who have become trans men. And it is always striking to me that they are never here. They do not share the aggression of the trans women. And that's really striking, that they do not seek to oppress me as a woman. They have always been respectful. I have worked alongside them, and that there's a very clear pattern that nobody ever wants to talk about. So, and the only other thing I wanted to add to Drew's point about we will continue to fight for democratic rights and for freedom of speech, and that I've now forgotten because of the distraction, which is what they did to you earlier. But I know the other factor that they never want to admit to is that the extent to which the drugs that they take cause cancer. So we have to be resolute. We have to proceed on the basis of love and respect. And that will win over bullying and aggression every time. And it never ceases to amaze me that the authoritarian left has had a century of practice at this authoritarian leftism, and it always loses out in the long run.